Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's class. And in today's class, we are going to look at testing, right? Software testing. And I remember I explained what unit testing and integration testing is, and then I talked about just.io a bit. So I think I should go over it, right? So when you're testing a particular feature and you write one test for that particular feature and execute that particular test, you're actually doing a unit test, right? Because you're testing one feature. But then when you're doing, when you write a test for a couple of features, maybe those features agree with each other, right? Then you're writing an integration test. So let me give an example. If you're creating an add product route and you just write a function to test adding a product, right? Sorry, you write a test to add a product. You're actually doing unit testing at that point. But what if, but in the situation or case where you write like you write a test suite that has some few tests in them. For example, you write the test to add a product, a test to get a product list, a test to get a single product, a test to update a particular product and to delete a product. You write all of that in a test suite or in a particular file. And once you execute that file, all those tests run. What you've just written is an integration test. Okay. So that's the basic difference between the both tests, right? And end to end is just end to end, like from they are similar to integration test in a way. Some people say integration test is testing the full uh platform, right? Yeah. So that's, you could also think about it that way. Right. So there are a couple of tools you can use for testing. There is Mocha. There is also the other one named Chai. And my personal favorite is just.io. So if you're not using Mocha and Chai, then you should probably be using just.io. Apart from these ones, there are other ones that are out there. And what does just.io do? Just.io just allows you to make assertions. So assertions are like saying, oh, this is the result you're expecting, and then this is the results you're getting, like comparing the results you're expecting with the results you got. So if they match, then that assertion has actually passed. But if the assertion doesn't match, then there might be an issue. For example, if you created a product with an ID of 1, and then you try to fetch that product with an ID of 1, and then you check if the title that you used to create the product is the same with the title, or the product name you used to create that product is the same with the product name you got from the database. If they match, right, then it means they are that particular assertion, right, or that particular comparison passed. But then if they don't match, then it means that it didn't actually pass. Okay. Yeah, Prince, good afternoon, welcome. So then remember that you're not just testing for just mere assertions. You're testing an API, right? And then you need a library to make a request to this API and be able to get response from that API after the request. So what library could we use, right? I've used Axios to write similar thing, but the default or the go-to library to use is SuperTest, right? And SuperTest allows you to pass your server in as a as an argument to its request object, and then you can make for calls you get. So that makes it easy for you to test your objects, even if the port number changes or anything changes about it, it's your test still runs fine. Okay, so, and it's also worthy to know that just.io is owned by Facebook. Yeah, yeah. If I'm not mistaken, yeah, just.io is developed by Facebook, or owned by Facebook. All right, so we've mentioned all these things, and then we should see how we can already start using this library, right? So we are going to start with the jest.io and how it's being used. Okay, so we are going to go to VS Code. So I have to stop sharing my screen and reshare my VS Code to you guys. So you're going to see how that works. Okay. Okay, so we are finally here. I think I'll just close this, right? Okay, so let's start with the jest.io, right? And this is a standard. Anytime you're writing your tests, you should have an underscore tests, then underscore folder where you will keep all your tests, right? Then also, so I already have a couple of tests here. I already have a couple of tests. So also, if you don't name your folder like this, right, and you want to run all the tests in this folder, I'm not sure you'll be able to run all, except it's named like this. Except you want, if you have like something like tests without the underscores, and then you want to run test.js, you have to actually refer to the file directly to execute it. Okay. So let's see how we can actually start using just test to just.io. So I think I already installed it. I don't know. Okay, I already installed it. I think I installed it in one of the other classes. Can't remember what. Okay, I think I was trying to do something, but this wasn't recently, I guess. Yeah, it wasn't recently. Okay, so let's start. Um, I'll just create a new file. I'll call it simple test dot test dot js. So whether it's TypeScript, it's always need to have this dot test dot js, right? So first thing is you want to like write an assertion, right? Um you want to describe something to to be tested, right? So let's take for example oh sorry, we have a function. So let's say you just say tests and you say test if 1 plus 1 is 2, right? And then you have a function here to do the test. Then you'd say let a equals to 1. Then you say maybe let b equals to 1. You'd say let c equals to 1 plus 1. Right? In fact, this thing I'm doing here is supposed to be written in another file. So let me just create a simple file. I'll just say simple test dot js. So I'll just say module dot export equals to the function itself. I'll just call it that way. I'm default exporting this function. I would want to do that, and I would say return C. So I could just write that way. Then inside here, I want to test if 1 plus 1 is 2, right? I could just do this. I would say const add, or the addition should be equals to require dot forward slash simple test. So what I'll then do is I could say results is equals to so let me open this other simple test at this point. So I'll just say result should be equals to addition. Remember, it's a function. Then the next thing I want to do is I want to compare the result of this function, because remember that I'm trying to check if 1 plus 1 is 2. So which means I know that the result will be 2. But I want to check if 2 is the result that is returned in this result. So I'll then say expect results dot to be 2. Okay, so this is saying I'm expecting that the result of this function that I've called should be 2, right? I'll save that, and then if I want to execute this function, I'll create a script to actually do that. That's what I normally do, to create a script that I can just use to execute that function. So coming here, I would say where is it? So I would say I like calling mine like this, test addition, at least like test and then addition. Then I would say just then dot forward slash underscore underscore test, right? Then forward slash simple test dot test dot js. Right. So if I want to execute this now, just say is it npm run test addition. So I don't know if I saved, did I? Okay, I saved it. So it's trying to run that simple addition test. So you see, it's running that file. Okay, so what is it saying? It's saying what? Okay, so test if 1 plus 1 is 2, 1 plus 1 is 2. Okay, addition is not a function. Okay. Exports, sorry, I didn't spell exports properly. Module.exports, I think that's the issue. So clear, then run this again. Let's see. Beautiful. So our test has passed, right? And we could still decide to maybe play around with this. You could say instead of that, we'll say A and B, so that the user can actually pass. Oh, I didn't even use any of these variables. Sorry. So A plus B, then I'll return C. Of course, so that means if I say 1 and 1, right? So that should still give us two. So you see, one test, this is the good thing about using jest.io. It ticks what passed, right? If we had two tests, so let me try some, and this is something also that some professional um uh testers use, right? Quality assurance, but this is not the only test they do, right? They also do what is called stress tests, but some of them write this kind of test, and the way they write their own test is actually different. Like a little bit different from how we used to write ours. For example, developers write tests to just make sure that their code passes, right? For example, if you're writing a test for login, you just put your username and your email and password, and then you try to write the controller or the feature for login, and then you test. Once the test pass, that it logs in. Most times you don't try to go and check other things, which is actually not good. You're supposed to check what if you did not attach any password, or what if you did not do any of those things, right? But then that's left for the software tester or the quality assurance engineer to make those kind of tests to check what is going on, if everything goes well. Maybe like checking if maybe the characters are up to 8. So if you said that 8 characters minimum is supposed to be for password, what happens if someone supplies 7 characters? Or what if someone supplies 7 spaces instead of 7 actual characters? If you're trimming passwords and all those things like that, right? So let me write another test for it to fail. So I'll say expect that this should be 3. So I could just say test if 1 plus this is 3. That's running that test. And 1 will pass and 1 will fail. And it points you to what failed. It tells you it is expecting that result is supposed to be 3, right? Now, another thing you should know is that it's not only just one assertion you can make, okay? You can have like a lot of them. Now, the reason why I'm only making one assertion here is because I'm not getting an object back here or an array. I'm just getting a result. Like I'm just getting an integer. So the highest I can do is compare an integer. So, but if I had more things to do, I can actually have like a lot of assertions to check if they are true or not. Okay. So once it points you to this line, for example, it tells you that it's so what it's trying to say here is the result, right, is different from what it was expecting. They are like two totally different things. You're expecting 3, but it came back with 2. So since they don't match, it means there's an issue with what you expected. Okay. So see, it said it received 2 as the result, but it was expecting 3, right, for this particular test, and then it shows you that particular test failed. Right. It's because so I saw someone writing test, but he wrote it as normal functions, right? And yeah, if you're writing it as normal functions, when you finish making your assertion, you now have to write manually what went wrong. But meanwhile, you have something that is automated here that can do that for you already. Now, this is just this is a for sorry, this is just using like to be, for example, right? So there are others actually. There's you're expecting something to be truthy. You could expect something to be null. You could expect something to be not equals to another thing. So I'll list out some few, right? I'll list out some few. So there is to be, there is a to be. I think I should make this come here. To be true, the which other one exists? So well, to be truthy, I think if this was is it Mocha also, it would be to.b, not to b. And if you notice something that happened here, we did not import jest.io or anything like that. We did not import, we just used it straight like that, right? And that's how jest.io actually works, right? That's how jest.io works. You don't necessarily need to do the whole importing and everything. You just install it and use. So there is this to be equal, right? There is not to be. So this one is so with the second test I wrote, I could have said, if I wanted it to pass, I would say the result should not be 3. So since it's not 3, it will always pass, right? Then you have, so there is to be truthy, there is to be falsy, to be falsy, this to be null. So you're expecting that it returns a null value. So you could say expect this dot to be null, right? This to be undefined. To be undefined. So you're not expecting it to have a value, right? There are others also. If you're working with numbers, there is to be greater than. So one thing you should know, to be truthy, to be falsy, to be null, to be undefined, don't accept arguments, because what do you want to pass as an argument? You're expecting, so to be truthy is you could use to be truthy to check if something contains a value, right? Or something is not null, which means it contains a value, or it's true. Can use to be truthy. So if you don't want to say expect this to be true, something like that, like expect, maybe if you're expecting a boolean, right? You could say to be true, right? You could also use the to be truthy there. Same thing with to be falsy. So greater than accepts an argument. So maybe you're expecting that the value should be greater than to be greater than 5, maybe to be less than, right? So there's to be greater than, there's to be less than, it's to be less than, there's to be greater than or equal to, is to be greater than or equal to, right? So then there are also others. There are actually plenty others. We might not cover. For example, there is to contain. So that one is important. For example, if you're expecting, you could say expect that contain, then you put the value that you feel should be contained inside that array, right? It could be a number, it could be a boolean, it could be whatever you want it to be. All right, and there are many more. So if you want to see more of this functions to use, you can actually read just.io documentation. So I'll just comment it there, and SuperTest. Okay, we've not made any any request for data before we check it. So let's see how we can actually make that request. Okay. So first of all, you would want to import. So it's say import requests should or require, did I say import require So install SuperTests. Installing SuperTest currently. So then the same way, if you want to install Jest, right? The name is Jest. Where is it? The name is Jest. So you just say npm install Jest. The same way it's you just do it that way. Right. So I'm waiting for it to be installed. Don't know why it's taking time. Okay, I'm still waiting for SuperTest to finish installing so that we can start using it. So while SuperTest is installing, we would want to do something. So let's go to our entry point and check. Are we exporting our server, right? Our HTTP server, are we exporting it? No. Now, you will need this HTTP server you're running your port um, in your test, especially if you're using SuperTest, so that you can pass this HTTP server to SuperTest, so that when SuperTest wants to start a test, it will automatically start up this server and then run your API calls and then stop the server when it's done. So that means you do node.export equals to HTTP server. So once you do that, of course, we've installed SuperTest already. So you'll be able to do this SuperTest. Then you then say columns HTTP server should be equals to require require // app. Okay. So with that, you've imported the app where you want to use it. Then the next thing you want to do is you want to start setting up, right? I think I should just comment everything here. So you say, Now, when you are writing a test suite, right, you could use describe, right? Or you could use it or test, anyhow you want to do it. So the way I like writing my own is I'll say describe. I first put a description. So what do I want to test? Maybe I want to test register and login. So test for register and login features. So I do that, and then the next thing I want to do is I want to write the functions to do my test, to do the testing. So I'll then say test. So the first test is register with so let me see how am I registering? I guess I have that route here. Okay, there's auth. So let's just see what fields am I registering with? Full name, email, password, and role. Register with full name, email, password, and role. Yep. So once I do that, the next thing I want to do is I want to call SuperTest, because SuperTest is going to make the request. So I'll just say response should be equals to SuperTest, right? And then I'll pass in what I'm supposed to use the server I want to use SuperTest or to run using SuperTest, which is this HTTP server. So so I'll say HT what? HTTP server. Then I can then say dot post, right? So remember, this is the same thing as me putting it on the same line, just that it will extend to this other part, so which I don't want to happen. So I'll say posts and let me save this. So I'm posting to /auth/register, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm not mistaken, /auth/register. Then remember that we are sending a full name, email, and password. Then I would say dot send. And then of course send will be an object. So I could say full name should be Victor Peter Talk. Email should be maybe, so I might want to register a customer, because of course there's a role. So it should, at least it should be descriptive. Your test, so these are like, should I say test comments or test strings for it to use to identify which tests in particular ran or failed, right? So the next thing would be password. Password would be WEE. Oh, we are great. Then the role would be customer. Right. And is there any other thing I'll need to set? If you want to set request body, right? Like for example, you want to set the authorization. This is how you do it. You then say dot set, right? And another thing you should know, right, is that SuperTest is is asynchronous. So which means, and you are allowed to mark a test as an async function. So you have to await. So I guess that's the reason why when I write set, okay, it's not still giving me what am I using here? Sorry, requests. So yeah, I was wondering why. Yeah, so they set. So if you want to set something, maybe like authorization could be your bearer and then maybe the token here. And I'll show you something you can do, right? Because what you guys might be thinking now is you write your login separately, then you now copy the token and then go and test others. You can actually write a whole test suite with login, register, forget password, reset password, everything, one place, and then once you run that file, everything actually runs. But then you still need to divide things into their different modules or their different test suites. So I was just putting that there for you guys to note it. So with this, we've written our auth test to register, right? And then the next thing we want to do is what does it send back? So it's first supposed to send back a status code of 201. So I want to start testing that. So I would say expect response dot status dot to be 201, right? Then I want to expect also that response dot body, now it's not data because that's what Axios uses, but it's response dot body dot message should be user created successfully. Then I can also decide to check all this other one like the OTP token generated, the purpose, and all the stuff, maybe to verify your email. Yeah, I could check that. OTP token generation, of course, you know that this is going to be random, right? So if you really want to check this, right, you can actually query the database after you've done this registration. You can down here query the database for that auth token or that token, right? Maybe you can say await user collection dot find one where maybe email is equals to the email, or if you're using email to save, oh sorry, you can see this thing is OTP, maybe it would be OTP collection dot find that OTP that is concerned with the user, and then you check if the OTP token is the same as this particular one. You can do that here, is also allowed, right? So user created successfully. What else are we supposed to do? Let me check the purpose. Expect that response.body.purpose to be verify email. So that should be verify email, right? Let me see what I could do about this generate token. So I should come over here. Where is it? Where is our models? Okay, these are models. So we have OTP model, then there's a user ID. So one thing again is, okay, so if we can actually do it. So this is what we will do. we'll import that user and we import the token. So we'll say const, instead of me doing this, I would like it to update automatically. So this is what I'm going to do. I'll say user details should be equals to await user collection. Please give me a recommendation. Wow, not giving me any suitable correction. User collection. Oh, user model, sorry. I'm supposed to call it user collection. I don't know why I call it user model. User model dot find one, and I'll say find one where the email, in fact, where the email is this email. So I'll just simply copy this email, right? One good practice is you can actually have something like this, right? You might have something like that so that here you just simply say email, and you can also say the same thing here so that in case the email changes, if you wrote email here and then you change that email but you did not change this one, it will start causing bugs that even yourself it will take your time. You wouldn't want to solve this kind of bugs, right? Then the next one is for you to now check. Since querying the user details gives you the details of the user, you can then query OTP collection or OTP details, await OTP, I think it's OTP model by the grace of God. Yeah, OTP, OTP model dot find one, and then you want to find one where the user ID is user details dot underscore ID. So with this, right, it will check. Now, also, what are the other things that are in the OTP model? You want to check, you might also want to check for the token that was sent so that it might actually be very precise. So you might want to check for the ID, you might want to check for the purpose, which is verify email. So I think I should make this look better. And remember that we're also expecting a token to be sent back, an OTP token, which is the generated token, which is stored. So you might also want to check where the OTP token is response.body dot OTP token. So what I'm doing here, what I'm simply doing here is I'm trying to trace that user, then I'm trying to trace the token that was created after the user registered, and then I want to compare that token with the token that was sent when the user registered. So I could do something like this. I could say request.body.otp token should be equals to OTP details dot is it OTP token? Yeah. So let's first test this one that we've written. Right? So I'll say let's clear this. Then also the test name is not going to be addition again. Instead of addition, I think auth would be a good name. So I would say auth. So let's see. Okay, so it's saying what? Cannot read property of no reading user details dot ID. So there is an issue, there. So let's see how we can actually trace it. So we find one where the email is that email, where the email is this email. Then when the user finished registering, we get to the OTP model to find a user with that ID. Okay. So I don't know if it's because of the underscore ID or because ID also exists this way. So let's see. Email is this email. It's saying cannot read property of non-reading ID. So once we find a user with that email, so before this, let's check. Was there any? So if you notice, our port started. It said connected to database. Then it started trying to run this. So let's see. Let me try to run this again. So if this is not running, then it probably means it's not registering. Let me just do 400. Or let's say 40,000. Let's do 40,000, right? So this is a simple way to actually follow up your issue. You say console.log user details, my user details. So let's see the result of the user details if it is something that we can't work with. Okay, so it's saying user details is null. And I'm thinking the reason why it's saying user details is null is because it didn't actually register that user. Full name, email, password, and then row. So let's, okay, so I think the registration is failing because we 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. What else? We are grades 1, 2, 3, 4. Or 2, 3, 4. So let's see again. Oh wow. So another thing I want to see is if the response dot body is here. So this is the problem. The response body is not returning what it's supposed to return. The response body is empty. It's returning an empty object, right? It's returning an empty object. So that's an issue. And so I'm thinking, do I have to, so let me do this dot set content type should be application forward slash JSON, application forward slash JSON. So we have request, we have this, we have the content type, we have that. So then we'll need to change the email again. So I'll show you what is called tear down. Is what is called tear down, and it's makeup, I can't remember, but this, you can actually run a code before you start your whole test. Okay. So let's do this. Let's manually test first to see what is going on. Let's test manually first to see what is going on. If it registers manually using what we just supplied, then there is probably another problem. So npm run dev, then I'll just copy these objects. So I've been able to do that. I just need these two, paste them there, strip them of being that way. Okay. Then let me try to register. Okay. So it's saying what? Customer is not a valid role. Customer is not a valid role. Oh, okay. So what is the valid role we could use? Okay, customer or admin. Okay, then in the model, what did we use? Okay. It has to be customer or admin. So my bad, my bad, my bad. It was actually from the database. Okay, so we've solved that. Let's go back to run that automated test again. So I'll just say 400. So run it, connect to database. Beautiful. So you see that the test actually passed, right? The test we've written actually passed. And the reason why you're having this error or this warning after your test is because it did not tear down some things. So remember that your database started, right? And then you're supposed to stop your database when you finish. Okay, so let's see how we can actually implement that. And also, secondly, your server is running. You do not instruct um jest.io on what to do after running all your tests, how it should stop those servers. So that's what we'll do. We say, so there's this tear down that is called before all, right? I think there's before one, after one, and before all, after all. So let me explain. If you want something to be done immediately, like as a particular test is being executed, you want that action to repeat itself per test, then you have to use it uh, before one, right? Before one executes before the test, right? Executes. For example, maybe I want something to execute before this register test is being executed, then that function should execute again, right? Before another test executes. I can just say, I think it's before one. I can't remember if it's before one or I think it should be that. I can't really remember now. Um, just give me a minute. I think it's called before one or before all. Oh, okay. Sorry. It's before each. Before each, there is a after each. Then there is a there's also before one and before all and after all. So before each, right, as the name implies, is executed before each test is being executed. So before each will execute, register test will execute. Then before each will execute, then login test will execute. Before each will execute, before another test will execute. Like it's execute after or before each test is being executed. Then after each, right, will execute after your test finish. So like maybe if you run this test, right, and you're using after each, register will run first. Then after register runs, after each will now run. Then before the next one, then after each will run, right? But then my personal favorite is before all. So what these things are used to do is, in case you want to maybe clean your database up for those dummy data that you try to save or use, right? Or maybe there's a service you have to disconnect and connect to per test. You can use before each, after each, right? But then before all and after all works similarly to before each and after each, but just that before all, right, runs before any of the tests is being executed, and it's run once during that test. So once before all finish executing, all your tests will now execute. Then while after all is used, when after all the tests has executed, then after all will be called. Okay. So this is what I like to do, and both of them accept the callback function. So I like using before all to clean up my database of any repetition. For example, if I use this email if I run a test with this email twice, the first time it is going to pass, the second time is going to fail. Why? Because this email already exists, right? This email will already exist. So you need something like before all to delete this email before then it starts trying to run this code, right? Then you need after all if you want to stop the database from running. Okay. I hope you guys are following. So you would want to do something like HTTP HTTP server, please come up dot. Okay, someone has a question, I guess. Okay. So we have HTTP server dot close, which will close the HTTP server, and then we would have await. So we want to disconnect mongoose. So we want to do something like const mongoose should be equals to require mongoose. And then here you could say await mongoose dot disconnect. So disconnect is going to stop mongoose from running, right? And this can also be marked as an async function. Right. So we're able to do that. And then the before all now, remember that we registered a user with this email, and then we should be able to still use this email. We should be able to test this code 20 times and it should work 20 times. So that means we need to do a kind of cleanup. So we could do something like this. Say async, sorry. We say async on that, then we say await user model dot find one and delete, right? And that brings us to another. I don't want to hard code this email here. So what I would rather do is, instead of assigning this email here, I would rather assign it as a global variable. So I'll say, I'll put the email there like that, and I'll say find one where the email is that email. Find one and delete. So what will happen to this code is, once I execute it, it will delete all emails, right? To delete, sorry, did I say all emails? It will delete this email for this user I want to try to test. It will delete this email. Then it will run the test. And after running the test, it will graciously exit or stop the servers from running. So let me test it again. Right, another good thing to do would be to test the OTP model. So a 409 means there is a repetition. So I didn't save this file. So another thing I want to do is await OTP model dot delete many. Just passing an empty object there so that I delete all the OTP models that exist there. So let me save that, come back here, run test auth. I know this one failed because I didn't save the file. So let's see. It passed. And even if I don't test anything and I try to test the file again, it's going to pass, because remember that I am deleting that email, I'm clearing that email from the database. Right, then let's write a second test for our login. Now, this is one thing. You can also declare a let. You can say let token equals to an empty string. Then while you're running your test, you assign the token so that it can be used in subsequent tests. Do you get? So you can do something like this. You can say test uh, customer login with email and password. So this should be async because definitely I'm going to have async functions in there. Then I want to test registration. So that would be me saying const response should be equals to await request HTTP server dot post, and what are we posting? We are posting email and password. So I'll just copy this email and password. Okay, so I'll copy that email and password. Then router, I'll then do, okay, this is, so for login, okay, I know we can't log in actually because I haven't verified my email. So that's what I would want to do here. So I could also create a verify. So I'd say test verify and login user, right? Or customer. So the verify endpoint, what is it going to take? The verify endpoint is going to take OTP token and purpose. Beautiful. So how do we do that now? The simple way to do this is, since this OTP details has everything to do with the OTP you want to use, remember that this OTP and all those stuffs are sent by email to the user. Remember, we are sending this email to the user. So I know some people might also be asking, since we are sending it to the user as email, so why don't we return it here so that in the front end can use it? Don't do that in a production level application. Don't do that. Rather, query your database from your code to get that person's OTP details and then apply it. So this is what I could do. The same way I have token here, I could say let OTP details equals to null. In fact, let me leave it as undefined. So do you know that doing this, right, is different from this. This is what? This is undefined, but explicitly saying is null, right? Makes two of them different. This one, you're purposely making it empty. Like, you can also shall say undefined. But the two of them are, the two of them represents void, like no particular value, but it's actually a value. Okay, so I'll say OTP details in that way. Then instead of me assigning OTP details like this, I'll just say OTP details should be equals to this, whatever we find there. Now, this is going to enable OTP details here to be automatically assigned when once we do query that database for the OTP model. Then I would say test here verify customer's email. Then say const request should be equals to await, because this is going to be an async function. Then this is going to be request, request, request. No, not that request. request. Request is going to be HTTP server dot. Is it a post? Is it a post? It's a patch. Dot patch. Patch. And then dot send. Sorry, what did I do? What am I doing here? So dot post dot send. Then it's inside this send that we put in our objects. Cool. So dot patch dot, I don't trust this send. I don't know why. I want it to tell me, I want it to tell me the send. So we have request, await request. Oh, no wonder. Await request, http server dot patch dot send. Yeah, I knew there was some kind of issue. Okay, so what does this one accept? Again, it accepts OTP. So the OTP is going to be OTP details dot something. I don't know. I can't remember. The OTP token would be OTP details dot OTP token. I seriously feel this is dot OTP, but I'll check it. Then we now have a purpose. The purpose could be you could just put verify email because that's definitely what's going to happen. Or if you still want it to be dynamic, you say OTP details dot purpose. So if you want to verify that, you can come back here and check. You say from the OTP, we have a OTP, which is the OTP. We have OTP token, which is the OTP token, and then we have the purpose, which is the purpose. Then once we do that, what is the success response we will get? So we would say that expect that to be, so expect response.status to be 200, which means it went well. Then expect this to be that. So expect response dot body dot message to be user email verified successfully. So then the next one would be to log in with the email and the password, right? Remember, email is coming from a global variable we set there. Password is that value. We didn't specify where we are patching to. So this is going to be /auth /verify. While here, this is going to be /auth /login. Okay. Sorry, everywhere is looking very tight. I'm going to remove this part of the code later on, but I think I can just remove these parts to make it a bit bigger. So when we are trying to log in, we are expecting something to be another thing. So we're expecting that when we log in, that something spectacular should happen. I don't know why I put here, but when we log in, we should be able to, we should normally, I don't feel like writing that again from scratch. So I'll just say that I expect that to be 200. I expect expect message. So that's response dot status, response dot body dot message to be login successful. Then you could say response dot user details, user detail dot full name. Now I'm reusing full name, right? And remember that I declared it as a variable here, and I don't want to have issues with full name. So I'd rather also declare this as a global variable, because I don't also want issues with that. So I could say full name is equals to that, and I would say full name should be equals to full name here, which is the global variable we just declared, and then email should be email, right? Then I want to check if there is a token. So the way for me to check for it is saying token should be truthy, which means a token should exist, right? Prince will have seen your message. So let me run the test for authentication, right? For register and login, and see if everything is going to pass. So beautiful. The three passed actually. So we wrote a test to register customer with name, email, password, and role. We also wrote a test to verify the customer, which passed, and we also wrote a test to log in the customer. Now, another thing we might want to do is we might want to say, since we are trying to log in the customer and then subsequently we'll use that token, we can say token should be equals to request.body.token. Fine. So if there is any other test suite I want to use to, for example, maybe query a protected route, I can then use this token that I've just assigned. So let me start again from the beginning for people that are confused, because I know a lot of people will get confused with what I just did. So let me start from the beginning, right? And let me close this side actually, so that we'll see. Okay, I can even do that here. Do this. Right, so I don't need to close. Yes, so you can keep adding multiple tests in the description block. You can also even create another describe, for example. So maybe if I want to test adding, because I think this is the to-do app or to-do stuff we created, right? If I want to test adding a to-do or getting a list of to-do, I can have another describe here. I could say describe, then I would then say then maybe what I want to do there. So I want to test a to-do, I want to do this, I want to do that, and then have tests inside that other describe block. Okay, so that aside, now let's come back to what we've written here. So now, right, what we just did, right, was first we installed SuperTest, right? And we installed jest.io, although I didn't install it here, but this package already came with jest.io, right? So, but if you wanted to install jest.io, you just say npm install jest, right? You'll just say npm install jest, right? Then the next thing we did was we imported our server, which is where our code is running, right? Then we imported the collections or the models, right? We are going to use, these are actually collections, right? So we import the collections we want to use, right? And then we import mongoose, right? Then there are some things I know that I will use multiple times. For example, the token, the OTP details, the full name, and the email. I'll use them multiple times. So instead of me hard coding the full name multiple places, I just write it once and then use it. So in case I come and change this email here, I'm rest assured that anywhere I'm referring to email, that update will also be received. Then remember what I said about before also. I said before all runs before any of your tests is being executed. So before any of my tests execute, I want to delete any user that has this email, because if I don't delete that user, then trying to register as this user is going to cause an issue. It's not going to go well, right? It's not going to go well. Now, you see what I just did? I just tested for only the best cases, like when there is no user with that email. So a software tester will come and test what happens when there is an email. Like a software tester might duplicate this line of code, might duplicate this test, right? Might duplicate this test and then check what happens if a duplicate email is or an email that has already been registered, right, is being used. It will check it and make sure that the proper response code is returned, the proper message is returned, and any other thing. Okay, so before we start our tests, we delete all this we delete the user, and then we delete all the OTP, right? Then after all the tests have run or are being executed or have been executed, we are going to now run this after all. So the after all is going to close the server, like it's going to shut down the server, because you finish testing now. Why do you want the server to still be running? It will shut down the server, and then the next thing is going to disconnect Mongoose. Remember that Mongoose connects to the server so that you can then start making requests to it connects with the database server so that you can start making requests to the database server. So if you want to disconnect it, you disconnect it this way, right? Then, and the reason to do this is that after your test, right, Jest doesn't automatically shut down your server, right? It doesn't automatically shut it down. So you have to either come and manually shut it down, or you can write this after all to shut it down. So the next thing we did is we described what we want to do in this test suite. We described everything. Some people use test in describe and use it. Some people do this, they write test here, right? And then they use it here, right? In case you see this or you see some other style of doing it, right, it's somehow still acceptable. It's still okay, because the test will still run. But this is the way I like write my own. I always write my own, right? And also sometimes it might be as a result of what they are using. They might not be using just.io, they might be using something else. Okay, so I think I've said a lot about that already. So the first test we are writing, so this suite we are writing is just to register, verify, and log in a customer. So the first thing you want to do is register a customer with full name, email, and password, and role. So we first declare HTTP request. Then what do we pass there? Okay, it's a post request, and then we pass the route there. The next thing is we want to set the type, right? This setting of type is not really necessary if you're sending JSON, right? And someone might be asking, there's a way to actually send file, right? There's a way to actually send file using your tests. That's something I'm trying to recall. there's actually a way to send. So I think if you do dot send file, or is it dot send form? I'll check for that. Dot let me, I think it's dot attach. I can't really remember clearly. Okay, so if you want to send file, right, just check their documentation. Check SuperTest documentation. There is a way to actually send file using, I've actually used it before, sending a file using a test, right? Or during your test, you want to maybe test file uploads, for example, right? It's not difficult to do. But then with that, your content type will be multi-parts, form / multi-parts, right? Something like, I think form multi-parts data or something like that. Right. So once you do that, once you finish, you declare this part, right? This is going to send the requests automatically, and then you get your response back in your response variable. And then from there, you can then start doing your other assertions, like, sorry, checking for match, right? So you check, does the status match this? Does the message match this? Does this match this? Does this match this? And the rest. So the reason why I did all these parts, right? I could have skipped this part and then not even put in the OTP token. But the reason I did this part was for people that might be wondering, how do they, maybe if they send something to an email, right? Unless the where it gets hard is when you are sending something to an email, but you are not saving what you're sending from the email on the back end, right? That's where it gets a little bit difficult to track. But as far as this OTP model, I am saving the token, the OTP, on the back end, and then I'm also sending it as an email. So I can also like query it from the back end, like query it from the database and use, right? So that's what I did here, so that I can actually compare the OTP token there. Okay, then the next thing I did was verify customer's email. So verify /auth/verify. And then I pass in the details of what I queried here and stored up. Remember OTP details here. So email, then the next one was for me to log in, and then I also did the checking here. So I feel the last thing I have to do is to test a protected route. So let's see. Let's see what will happen. All right. So let's come here. Let's come to the router, right? I think this is like a protected route. So customer stroke, this is supposed to be customer. So let's try to add, okay, add multiple to do. Right, so let's try to add multiple to do. Okay, so this role-based access to add it to do. Let's see how we can actually do that. So let's see. So I'll describe let's say or test to create a to do. Okay. Then the next thing for me to do is I would say tests create a to do, create and list to do. This should be async. Then the next thing to do is this to create a to do, right? So I'd say const response should be equals to await request HTTP server dot post post. Then this would be, so let me come back here, / to do / to do. All right. So / to do / to do. So we have title and description. Then I'll say dot send. My first to do here is my first to do. Then we want to check if that to do has been created. So what we'll then do here is we'd say so we'll say expect, okay, you'll get the hang of it very well. Prince will to do expect this dot to be that. So expect response dot status to be 201. Remember it's 201. Then response dot body dot message should be to do created successfully. Then response dot body dot to new to do dot title should be equals to my first to do. My first to do. Then description should be here is my first to do. And what you might want to do here is you might also want to clear your to-do model, right? And I want to say await. Do this before all and after all, do it carefully. Oh. Don't do it on a production server. Oh. Don't do it on, in fact, why should you even be testing on a production server? Don't do it on a staging server. Oh. You get why? So people might not, like what I want to do currently, what I want to do is I want to say to do model before when you're doing stand-up, someone will come with machetes to pursue you. That's why did you delete things like this, like deleting many. It's you don't have to, you don't necessarily need to do that on a staging server, because on a staging server, other people's data might be saved there. right? Except explicitly, you guys agree that the staging server can be used for automated tests. So which means people can lose their data and all the stuff. It's fine, right? Some people also decide um, to use different databases. Like there's how you can configure uh, your you can configure your environment in such a way that when you're running tests, right, that the it's going to use a different database than when you're using when you're doing your normal development. There's how that is being configured. So I'll make that available to you guys. So it's say delete many. So I just want to delete all. So that when I'm fetching here, I know that first of all, after doing all these things, if I'm trying to fetch a to do, so I'd say test dot test, and I'll say fetch to do list. Then sorry about that. Um, so when you're fetching a to do, right, you might just say const response should be equals to await request HTTP server dot posts, no, dot get. And where are we getting to? We are getting from forward slash to do forward slash to do finish. You can still put the forward slash there if you want or not. So once you do that, first of all, remember that we cleared the list of to do. So this should return an array of a single element. Remember that you cleared the to do. So okay, this has opened. So let's check it. Okay, so we are just returning the list of to do finish. We're just returning the list of to do. So definitely you can do something like this. Expect this to be 200. Of course, that's the response that status. Then expect response dot body dot length to be 1. Remember, we in before all, in this before all, right? We cleared all the to do that we have. So when you add a new to do and then you're fetching a list, definitely it has to be like 1. Then you can say to do dot body, right, which is an array. Then you say dot 0, which is the first element, dot title should be equals to my first to do. So I've written all this and let me test it finally. So this is the moment of truth. This is the moment of truth, the moment of truth. So what happened? So it received 400 when we were trying to get the list of to-dos. Okay. Then when we were trying to create a to-do, we also received something else. So let's see how we can solve that. Let's see how we can solve that. So first, let's come here. Wait. Let's come here. When we are logging in, so let's see the role. Okay. So if you keep scrolling up, okay, so we see that registering did not work, verify did not work, so but login worked. But then after logging in, the rest didn't work. Sometimes your test will whine you, but don't panic. So what is it saying? Attempted log, this, 4 failed, only 1 passed. So let's come back here. What happened with our registration? Okay, so for this one, it exceeded its timeouts. And this is something that is common. It's not like it's less common. So there's a way you can extend the time. I think it's, if you put 5, let's say 8,000 here to extend the time. Now, what is actually delaying this registration? Let me check. Yeah, what is delaying this registration is this sending of email. So I'm awaiting this sending of email. If I don't await it, it would actually be faster, right? So I remember Matilda asked this question once. If I wait for this email, right, the registration will be slow. You have to wait until the email is sent before it will continue to like send back a response. But if I don't await the email sending, it will just send this request and then tell me the user has been created successfully without waiting for the email to be delivered. So I think I would rather remove that and not wait for the email to be delivered. So let's test that again. Okay, so 3 passed and 2 failed. So what's the 2 that failed? Creating a to-do and getting a list of to-do. Beautiful. So let's see what did we not do right when we were trying to create a to-do. So first, we should check it's to-do / to-do. So it's to-do / to-do. So it accepts what? It accepts a title and a description. Okay. The title and the description, and it sends back that. So it's sending back 400, and why is it sending 400? Oh, okay, 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 okay. Did you guys notice that I did not set the authorization token? Because this is a protected route. So I would say dot set authorization should be bearer token. And I think when I'm getting a list of to-dos too, I need to also set this. So I'll just simply copy this and paste. Copy it. Where is it? Get to do, then paste. Set the authorization to bearer token. Then come back here, clear my terminal, and run the test again. So now one fails, one failed, and then what's it's okay, it doesn't return 200, it returns a 400. So let's see why that returned a 200 or a 400, sorry. Okay, so after so I want to view, okay, I want to view to do get all to do. So I didn't add any of those values, but are they actually necessary? Okay, so there's title, sort, task status, brand value, question. So let me see. I think I should do that instead. I should add that forward slash. So let's test again. Let's test again. So let's see why it is returning that. Okay, so a simple way for you to know or to see why it's returning what is returning is you could actually console.log your request body, req.body, just for to test to see what is going on. So if you scroll up, okay, it doesn't actually give you any information here. So what you want to rather do now is you want to test it manually to see the issue. So you first want to register like that. Verify your token. Let me check my email. So this is going to be 5724. It's 5724. Right. So then the next thing you want to do is to copy this email and password. We want to copy that email and password, send. Then the next thing you want to do is to get a list of to-dos. So you want to right, so you just send that. Okay, so it cannot get to do like that. It's saying error. Okay, so which means there is an error with that particular route. Let's see how we can actually debug that error. So let's come here. Let's console.log the error to see it actually. Because even me, I'm surprised about the error. Okay, so what is it saying? Oh, there's no length. So there's an issue there. This so in the to-do routes, on what line actually? On line 16. So let's go to line 16. Let's go to line 16. Is this the to-do controller? Okay. Line 16. Yeah, so this is its length. I don't know why I put D instead of G. And let's try to test again. Oh, what is it saying now? It's still pointing to line 16. That's strange. Okay, it can't read undefined of length. So this is simple. What we would rather want to do is you would want to write if there's a brand value and the brand value has a length. Just the same way we have if title and title is length. Then you want to say if they sort. Okay, if they sort, right? If there is sort and the sort is ascending, then you do this, right? And else, if there is sort and then it's descending. So why is this? It's saying the parser expected to find this is this. Okay. If sort and sort is equals to ascending, or else if sort and sort. Okay, so I think I have to remove that. Then make that request again. Finally. Okay, now look, there's something interesting happening here. It's coming back as docs. Docs. So you have docs and then the document. So the best thing to do is, so when you're checking, it's not just response.body.length, it's response.body.docs.length. So the same thing here, response.body.docs, because the docs is the array, right? And then from docs, you have your array. So you can pick the first one and then check the title. So let's crash the server, clear it, and test once again. Oh, one is still failing. Okay, it's saying REQ is undefined. REQ is undefined. Okay. Um, this is because of this line of code. REQ doesn't exist there, rather I have requests. So let's try again, and all the tests should pass. Beautiful. So all tests have passed. All 5 tests we've written have passed. So moral lesson, right? Don't mind me. But then once you've written this, right? Once you've written this test, you can always use it. You can always use it to. So now, if you have a list of things to, for example, if you want to find out if maybe you're working with another developer, something changes on, or maybe another developer was sent to work on the auth route to add something, or to adjust something, right? The first place you're going to adjust is your test, right? To know how it is supposed to function. Okay, this is what you're expecting from here. This is what you're sending. If this has to be this has to be that. Then after doing that, you now start writing your tests. Sometimes, in fact, this is what senior devs do most times in a team. They give the junior devs the task. They write an automated test for all those tasks, and then they push the automated tests. So it's left for you as the junior developer working on that team. When you write your feature, you run their tests to test that feature. In fact, you can actually be looking at their tests to know how you're going to implement your features. So once you look at their test, you know that okay, this is how the route looks like. This is what it's going to be checking for. You know how you're going to structure your data and how you're going to write your route and your controller and how you're going to return the response. So once you do that, you run the test, you run it, you find out that there's something else that is not going well. You come back, you write you rewrite your code, and then you test until all tests have passed. That's when you're working with a senior developer. Now, if you're working solo, you still need tests, and I'm going to tell you a true life story. So there was a project I was working on, and there was some set of routes I was supposed to test, right? Tests. So it was an e-commerce app, and I was supposed to test when when a product has been shipped, when the product has been delivered, when the product has been this, has been that, and that, and that, and that, all those things. And it was actually quite stressful for me to sit one by one. When I make a change, I come back and test one by one those routes, right? Test those individual routes. So what did I do? The simple thing I just did was I wrote a test. I just wrote the test for how exactly all those routes are supposed to work, what data they should do, what's the kind of request users or the admins cannot make that should not be processed and everything. I wrote everything down in the test. Then I went to continue writing the routes. Then as I was writing the route, I'll just run a particular command. It tests all the routes and then tell me what is faulty. Then I just go there, fix it, come and run everything. See that one passes. If another one fails, I fix. And it shortened the development time for that particular feature, for those set of features. It drastically shortened it because I did not need to test manually over and over again, right? I just had to run a script, right? And this is good while your project is growing, right? So you might not have that time to sit to be testing one route one after the other. You go here, you test this one, you come here, you test, you go here, you test. You can just write like a full test suite, and then once you run that test suite, you can see everything that is breaking on your app and the ones that are working, and you know exactly where you're going to touch and where you're not going to touch. Okay. So that makes it easy. Sometimes after running this test and then you find out that something fails and you don't know the root cause, you can actually manually spin up a server and just test that particular route to see what is going on, and then you fix. Then when you fix, you check the test again. You check the test to see what else is failing. You go and fix it and the rest. Then when you come back, you test, you run the test again. You see if what you fixed works well. If it has passed the test, you go to another one. It makes development easier, faster and easier. And also, when you're setting CI/CD, right, you can make it in such a way that once the test runs, if even one test fails, that particular deploy will be cancelled, right? So if a particular thing, and also even front-end developers have it, is it React test suite. You can use it to test components. It's component testing. It exists for front-enders, right? But here on the back end, you're testing your features. Okay, this create to do feature, when you query it, what should come back and the rest and all those stuff. So that is it, right? That is this is a good introduction to test. I think this is going to give you a foundation for how you're going to test henceforth, or how to write your test. Then I was talking about something. I was talking about having a different environment for you to use for tests. Now look at this. So if you had something like this, remember that in our app.js, we are connecting to a particular database, right? You can have two database URLs. You can do something like this. So you can have test DB, and you have something like automated or automated test DB. So you could say DB URL and you could say automated test DB URL, something like that, right? Test DB URL and automated test DB URL. And you could do this. You could say, then, okay, we didn't declare an env here, so we could just say, let's not declare it, because by default it's development. So you could say if process.env dot node underscore env, if it's equals to env, if it's equals to test, sorry, if it's equals to test, then you might want to use that automated test one. But else, if it's not test, if it's something else, you might want to use the default one. So you might want to do something like this. You might want to write something like this. Now, when you've written something like this, how do you now run your tests? This is what you do. So in your package.json, you say automated test, this, and then you say node underscore env should be equals to test. So if you do that and then you run your authentication again, so let me check, where is it? Let me refresh my database. So everything ran. Let me connect to my database and see if it created a new one. So while I'm waiting for my database to open up, Okay, so this opened up, and let's see, what did we even call before? To do automated tests. Oh, I connected to the wrong database, sorry. Okay, so this actually worked out. What I just did actually worked out. So, wait. Oh, even despite the fact I didn't save it. Okay, that's nice. So let me reshare my screen to show you what actually happened. So coming here, right? Coming here, you see that we have to do test DB and we have to do automated test DB. So now what happened was this to do automated test DB, right, was what was used for my test. So you see, it created the customer, it created the to do, right? It created the to do, and running this test did not affect my to do DB, like, because of what I did there. Remember that I specified a database it should connect to, right? So let's come back here. So I said, so what I did here was I said that if the env is equals to test, it should connect to the automated test DB and run its test. Else, it should connect to the normal DB to run its test. Then, when I was trying to run my test, I set the node environment to test, right? So if we wanted to, let's say, if you would still manually wanted to do your env stuff here to production, you could just say this should be production. But on by default, right, this should be set automatically, right, by wherever you're deploying your uh solution to, or your backend to, right? But if it's not set, you can actually do this node env production, and then it will set it for you. And of course, whatever feature you want to work on production will then work for you. Okay, so I've said a lot of things already. Is there anybody that has any question? Is there anybody that is confused at any point and would want to gain clarity or ask for clarity or any question? Any? Is there any? Is there any? So I guess there is no question currently, and yeah, since there's no question, I'd like to thank you for coming out to today's class, and then the classes that are going to be left, subsequent classes are going to be mainly for revision, to just go over what we've talked about and everything. So congratulations, at least you've made it to this point, and that's an achievement. You've been able to at least cover most of what we are to learn, right? So anything we are going to do about revision is it's going to be probably what we've learned before, and maybe just going a little bit deeper or revising it and the rest. All right, so I just hope you've at least learned one or two things in this class, and I'll see you in the next one by next week, Tuesday. Thank you very much, and bye-bye for now.